Hello guys, welcome to another tutorial. Today I'm going to show you how to make this bodice block using the Natalie Bray version. If you want to see how I made it, please stay tuned to the end of the video. Thank you. These are the tools that I'll be working with. I have this hip French curve, and then I have the armhole curve, and then this ruler, and also this metal ruler. For measurement, I'm going to use the sample from the book. So we have a bust 92, waist 70, hips 98, length to waist 40, back width, chest width 38, shoulder to open 5, and then the top arm has 30. So I went ahead to divide it into half and then into a quarter. I did the same to the waist and the hip, also the back width and the chest width. And then here we have a table of proportion. Now usually this is just a guide as to what bust size you're drafting. To mark a margin along this line and then another margin along the top. So here is 1.5 cm. 1.5 cm here. And I'll draw that across. Then across the top, I'm going to do 2 cm. Then I'm going to mark that across too. For the length, I'm going to mark 75 centimeters long. Now this measurement is in the book. Mark here 75. And then take that line across as well. Now once that is done, I'm going to get the exact width of the rectangle that we're working with. So to get the exact width of the rectangle that we're working with, you're going to use half of your hips measurement plus 3 cm. But in a case where you have the bust larger than the hip, you're going to use half of the bust plus 5 cm. In this case, the hip is larger, so we'll go ahead and use that. So that's going to be 49 plus 3 cm. Yes, that's 52. Sometimes I just like to add like 1 to 2 cm extra to that measurement, because in some cases when you're drafting, the hip tends to overlap for some measurements. It doesn't happen all the time, but just to avoid that, if you have that extra 2 cm, that can accommodate that. It doesn't add to your measurement. It doesn't, affect it in any way. So that's going to be 49 plus 3. That's 52 plus an extra 2 cm. That's 54. I'll go ahead and mark the 54 right here. I'll just extend that line. So now we have the exact size here, which is 75 cm long and 54 cm wide. The top line, this line will be the center front line. This line will be the center back line. We're drafting the center back first. The first thing I'll start with is the point O, because this is the point where all the other measurements down this line will be taken from. So for point O, in this case, we'll have 3 cm. Now, always remember that for different sizes you're drafting, this don't always stay the same. It changes based on the size of the bust that you're working with. So always, double check your proportion table to make sure you have the right proportion for that, excuse me. So here I'm going to mark 3 cm and call that 0.0. The next line is going to be the depth of armhole line or the bust line, which is 21.5. So from 0.0, I mark 21.5. The next line will be the length to waist, which is 40 cm. So from 0.0, I'll mark that 40. Next line will be the hip line, which is usually between 20 to 28 cm. Now this measurement is usually taken like from your waistline, the natural waistline, to slightly below your hip, just where your hip like pokes out. So based on the size, just know that you could work with whatever measurement you have for that. So in this case, I'll just use 22 cm. I think that's what they use here in the book, so I'll just stick with that. So here I'm going to use 22. From the waistline, I'm marking it from the waistline. So here, mark 22. Now make this 62 cm. That says 40 plus 22 here. After making that markings, I'm just going to extend those 3 lines to the center front. So the 3 lines I'm extending is this bust line, waistline, and hip line. Extend it to the center front line. So to do that, I'll just mark the 0.0 that I did at the CB. Just note that point so that I have a straight line when I'm connecting. So first measurement I took was 21.5 for the bust line, 40 for the waistline, and then 22 cm for the hip line. Once that is done, I'll go ahead and connect. Here I'm going to mark 3 cm and call that 0.0. The next line is going to be the depth of armhole line or the bust line, which is 21.5. So from 0.0, I mark 21.5. The next line will be the length to waist, which is 40 cm. So from 0.0, I'll mark that 40. Next line will be the hip line, which is usually between 20 to 28 cm. Now this measurement is usually taken like from your waistline, the natural waistline, to slightly below your hip, just where your hip like pokes out. So based on the size, just know that you could work with whatever measurement you have for that. So in this case, I'll just use 22 cm. I think that's what they use here in the book, so I'll just stick with that. So here I'm going to use 22. From the waistline, I'm marking it from the waistline. So here, mark 22. Now make this 62 cm. That says 40 plus 22 here. After making that markings, I'm just going to extend those 3 lines to the center front. So the 3 lines I'm extending is this bust line, waistline, and hip line. Extend it to the center front line. So to do that, I'll just mark the 0.0 that I did at the CB. Just note that point so that I have a straight line when I'm connecting. So first measurement I took was 21.5 for the bust line, 40 for the waistline, and then 22 cm for the hip line. Once that is done, I'll go ahead and connect. And like that, bust line, waistline, and the hip line. Just going to level this out. Bust line, waist line, hip line. Next, I'm going to mark some other lines here. So this is 0.0. The next line I'm going to do here will be 3 cm for the shoulder line. Now this 3 cm is taken from the book and is usually constant for all sizes. So no matter how big the bust or small it is, that 3 cm always remains the same. So I'll mark 3 cm right there. The next line will be the back line. Now this is usually taken halfway between point O and the bust line. So to do this, I'm going to divide this line into 2. Now, since this is now to get the back line, it's usually halfway between point O and the bust line. So we're just going to round this number here to the nearest whole number, which is 22. So halfway between 22 is like 11. Now I'm going to go ahead and extend these lines towards the CF, but not all the way to the CF, like about halfway across. So just going to mark, just make a dot here, 3 cm, so I have a straight line, and then 3 cm for the shoulder line, marking from the top there, 11 cm for the back line. I'll extend these lines. So I'll call this neck line, shoulder line, and back line. Now on the neckline, I'm going to use the back width, back neck width measurement, which is 7. So from the CB, I'm going to mark 7 cm. So mark 7 cm. And then from this point, extend it 2 cm upward. So from there, mark extra 2 cm right there. And then call it the NP, which stands for neck point. Next, I'm going to go on the back line and measure half of my back measurement. In this case, the back width is 36, so half of 36 is 18. So on the back line, I mark half back width measurement. That's 18. So I'm going to draw that across to touch the shoulder line and the bust line. So to do that, I'll also come on the bust line and mark the same 18 so that I have a straight line. There. So once it's done on the shoulder line, after the back width, I'm going to extend that line with 2 cm. That measurement also is taken from the book. So 2 cm right here, and then I'll call this point my SP, which stands for shoulder point. 2 cm. So I'm going to go ahead and connect neck point to the shoulder points to get my shoulder. So connect SP to NP. Next on the bust line, we're going to mark the back up, which is the back underarm points. So from the half back point here, we're going to mark 5.5 cm for the underarm point. Remember, always refer to your proportion table because it does change with size or the bust size you're working with. So I'm going to go ahead and mark 5.5 cm from the half back measurement that I did. And then I'll call here UP, which is the underarm point. So next, to get the guide of the armhole, below the back line, I'm going to mark a 3 cm, just as a guide for getting the perfect armhole shape. So I'm marking 3 cm. And then from this angle right here, this angle between the back up and the back line, I'm going to get like half of it, which is like a 45 degree. Okay, so 45 degree would be like somewhere here. So I'm using this as a guide. So this here is like 45 degree, just to get the exact center. You could gauge it, but if you do have a means to do it the right way, just do so. I'll just mark this point here just to like gauge the center. So listening to that point, I'll mark 3 cm right here. So once this is done, I'll go ahead and draw the armhole curve. Now once you're drawing, make sure this 3 cm that was marked, you make sure it stays as straight as possible. Right now, and just draw my armhole. You don't have to draw it all at once. You could just do it, you know, in bits till you get the perfect curve. So I'll just place this here and make sure it's right. All right. And then remember here, meant to keep it straight, and then connect all the way to your SB. Like so. Next, I'm going to draw the neck curve. So I just place my French curve here as well, and then there. Once this is done, I'm going to move to the hip line and mark quarter hip measurements, which in this case is 24.5. Now, sometimes you could add 1 cm, but it's optional. You could decide to add 1 or not. But in this case, I'm going to add 1 cm extra to it. So 24.5 plus 1, that's 25.5. So I'm going to go ahead and add and mark that out for the hip. So I'll call this HP, hip point, which was 24.5 plus 1 cm. That's how we achieve this point here. Next, I'm going to go ahead and connect the UP to the HP. That's the underarm point to the hip point. First of all, with the ruler. So connect. There. So next, to like shape out the waist, I'm going to take a 2 cm, or we'll call here waist point, this mark right here. So from the waist point, I'm going to mark 2 cm inward right here. Again, this measurement is in the book. You'll always find those instructions as you draft along. 2 cm. At the end, I'm going to use this curve to draw out the side. So what I'll do first is just make like a short curve like that, and flip it and do that, and then flip it and also to get the hip. And just make sure they connect. Next thing I'm going to do is shape out the waist. Usually you could do this later, but I just like to do it, you know, when I'm doing the back. So for that, on the CB line, I'm going to mark 2 cm to just get a more slanted back, center back line. So here I'm going to mark 2 cm on the waistline from the CB. So I mark the 2 cm, and then I connect to the back line. So from the waistline to the back line, I'll connect that. Now to connect to the bottom, I usually use between 15 to 17 cm, usually based on how long or short the person's torso is. So shorter torsos, I use like 15, longer torsos, I use like 16, 17. In this case, I'll just use 15 cm. So right here, and then connect right to this point. So there we have our shaped out slanted center back. Next thing I'm going to do is get the true waistline. Now to do this, from the waist point here, I'm going to use 0.5 cm. Now this changes based on the size of the pattern you're making. So for a bust 92, you could use 0.5 cm at the side, and then 1 cm on the center front. When we get to the center front, you'll see that. So this 0.5, I'm going to connect it to the center back. That's the slanted center back that we just did. Slight curve to achieve mine. Just curve slightly. So, like so. Once this is done, the next thing to do on this back pattern is to mark out the dots. Now for the dots, we're going to use quarter of the back measurement to get the center line of the dot. So for the back measurement here, the back width, quarter of the back width is 9 cm. So we're going to mark 9 cm. I'm going to mark it on the slanted CB, not the straight CB. So mark 9 cm right here from the slanted CB. Mark that. And then also, to get a straight line, I'm just going to, because this line is straight, I can use this line as a guide. So I'm just going to use this line as a guide to get my straight line. So that will make it 11, because 9 plus the 2 cm we took here. So 11 just to get a straight line, just a guide to get a straight line. Mark 11 here, also 11 down here. Now, when I'm marking the length of the dots on top, you could use between 12 to 13 cm, and then at the bottom you could use maybe 13 to like 15 cm. Like I said, this I usually gauge it based on how long the person's torso is. So for this, I'll just use 12 cm up, and then I'll use 15 cm down. But it's usually between 12, 13 up, 13 to 15 down. So I use 12 cm upward from the true waistline, not this first one, the second one. So I just place my ruler right there, 12. Okay, let me mark the center of the dot first. All right, let me just do this. So my 12 will be right here, and then 15 cm below the waistline. So my 15 will be right here. I'll go ahead and connect. Now the size of this dot for the back is 2 cm. So that means I'm going to take 1 cm on both sides. So mark 1 cm and then 1 cm. I'll go ahead and connect the dot. There. So the final thing we're going to do at the back before we move to the front is to check the shoulder. Now somewhere in the book it'll tell you, you make sure that the shoulder measurement you have is usually more than your actual shoulder. So in this case, our actual shoulder measurement is 12.5. So let's check this one to see what we have. Here we have 14. So the book says it should be like 1.5 cm to 2 cm longer than your actual shoulder measurement. So in this case, we have about 1.5 cm extra. Now that gives room for creating a dot at the back of on the shoulder. So to get the shoulder dot, I'm just going to mark the center point of this, which is the center point of 14. So that's like 7, and then the 1.5, I'll divide it both ways, so that's like 0.75 on each side. So that should be like here and here. To mark out the dot, I'm going to align it to the waist dot, and the length I'm going to use 8 cm for the length. So I'll just do that, align it, and then mark 8 cm, and then I just connect. So that is all for the center back. Now we're moving to the center front. So here on the center front, we already have the major lines extended. So the only lines we're going to add now is the true bust line, the chest line, the line for the base of the neck, and also the shoulder line for the front. I'll mark out the chest line first, which is 4 cm. Now this measurement is constant for all sizes. And the book will always tell you, which of these measurement changes based on the size. They'll always let you know. So 4 cm for the chest line. I'll just roll that about halfway across, and then 4 cm below the bust line for the true bust line. Now the true bust line usually falls like around the center of the bust. So 4 cm below. for the true bust line. So the next line will be the line for the base of the neck, which is 7.5 cm for a bust 92, and lesser for, you know, any bust that is lesser than 92, and sometimes more. So always check your proportion table, and the book will always tell you, you know, this goes up or down based on the size. So I'm going to mark that across to 7.5 just to get a straight line. So this is the line for the base of the neck. I'll just call it the neckline. And then the next one, from the top here, I'm going to measure 4.5 cm. That is the shoulder line. Now that also changes based on the size of the bust. So mark that and extend it like so. So let's just label neckline, shoulder line, chest line, true bust line. So once all this is done, on the top line, I'm going to mark the neck width, which we're using the same measurement of the back neck width, which is 7 cm. I'm going to mark 7 cm as the neck width here, and then also drop that same measurement on the neckline. So I mark 7 here, and then just connect. Next, on the shoulder line, measuring from the center front, I'm going to mark 16.5. Now this measurement is constant for all sizes. Mark 16.5. Now this is just to get a guide for drawing the actual shoulder. So mark 16.5 cm right there. So here we'll call it NP, which is neck point. Calling here neck point. Now I'm going to connect the NP passing through this line. Just connect from here to there. So place my ruler at the NP to that 16.5, and then just make a line. Now once that is done, okay, let's draw the neckline first. So I'm just going to do like halfway between this. Mark 3 cm at the center of this angle. That's just a guide for drawing the neckline. So just connect like so. Draw my neckline. Next we're going to get the dots now. So to do that, on the bust line, we're going to measure from the CF the quarter of the chest measurement on the bust line. So quarter chest is 9.5. So measuring from the CF on the bust line, I mark 9.5. And then I'm going to take that line all the way up onto the shoulder as well. So here, I'll also mark the 9.5. Just let it touch this line right here. Now I'm going to connect. And then I'm going to drop 2 cm below the bust line. So if I have to connect, I'll just make sure there's a 2 cm here, and then extend it up onto the shoulder line. Now once this is done, up on the shoulder line, I'll mark 2 cm this direction. 2 cm. Now connect this point back to this point. So this is just a guide to get the exact dot. So next we're drawing the dots now. So for the dots, we're going to go on the proportion and see what the dot size is. So in this case, it's 7.5. So from this point, from that 2 cm point we just made, we're going to mark the size of the dot, which is 7.5 cm. We'll mark that and just connect back to that 2 cm below. All right, so this is our dot. Just make a little shape here So this is the shoulder dart. Next, we're going to get the actual shoulder measurement now. So to do this, we're going to measure along this line, either skipping the dart or adding it to the measurements. So in this case, our shoulder measurement is 12.5 cm. So we're going to mark 12.5, but not with the darts rather. So to do that, there are two ways you could do it. You measure skipping this dart, or just add whatever that is to your measurement. So say we're going to measure skipping the dart. So what I'll do is I'll mark here. I'm going to get a measurement of 12.5, but I want to skip the dart. So I'm going to mark this. This is like 5. So I'll just move that 5 cm away from the dart and then just mark the 12.5 right here. So this would be my SP. Or you just add 12.5 to 7.5. You still get the same measurement. So this is our actual shoulder measurement now. If you close out the dart, it's going to be 12.5 cm. Next is to get the chest width. Now for that, we're going to use the same method we used here, skipping out the dart. So to measure the chest width, we're going to use half of the chest width, which is 19 cm. So to do that, you measure from the CF along the chest line, 19 cm, skipping the dart. So to do this, I'm just going to place my tape here. So you see just where it hits this. Remember, this line is not part of the dart. Your dart starts here to here. So don't measure this. Don't include that line. So I'm just going to put my ruler right here, and then just where it hits 10, I'll just move that 10 away from the dart, and then just mark half of the chest width right here. So this will now be my chest point, CHP. Next, I'll connect SP and CHP together. So this same measurement here, I'm just going to drop it down here too, just to have a straight line for also drawing the armhole. So I'm going to take the same measurement I took from here to here, which is, let's see what it is in total. So that's 21. So I'll just go here and mark 21, just to make sure the line is straight. Now once this is done, I'm going to look for the middle of this angle right here. So from that angle, I'm going to mark 1.5 cm as a guide for drawing the armhole. And then on the SP-CHP line, I'm going to look for half of that line. This is like about 6.5, and then mark 1 cm inward from that point. So once that is done, we're going to get the actual bust measurement for the front now. So to do this, we're going to use half bust plus 5 cm minus the back, minus the bust from the back here. So let's see what this is. Now, because I did my slanted CB, I'm not going to add this measurement to it. I'm just going to use between here and here, because this will be cut out once I choose my pattern out. So for that, I'm just going to place my ruler right here. So I have 23 as the back bust measurement. So that's 23. So half of my bust is 46 plus 5. So I'm just going to do my little calculation. So that's 46 plus 5 that's 51 minus 23. So we have 28 cm. So the measurement for the front bust will be 28 cm. So measuring from my CF on the bust line, I'll mark 28. So this will be my front UP right here. UP for the front. So once that is done, I'm just going to go ahead and draw out the armhole, with the guide that is already here. SP to CHP. I'm going to Just make sure I have a good curve over there, right there, and then here, because this curve is not that sharp, I'm going to use the less curvy French curve. So place that, and then from that point, I'm gonna place it in a way that also connects smoothly right there. So the armhole is done. So now that the armhole is done, we're going to move to the hip. To get the hip for the front, we're using quarter hip measurement, but in this case we're adding 3 cm extra. So for this, so it's 24.5 cm plus 3, that is 27.5. So just go ahead and mark 27.5 right there, and call this the HP for the front. Once that is done, I'm going to connect the UP and the HP, that's the underarm point and the hip point, with my ruler. Once that is done, I'm going to shape out the waist by the side to get my curved side seam. So for that, I'll take in 1.5 cm from the waist point right here. Once that is done, I'm going to go ahead and draw out my side curve first, like I did at the back, and then extend it here to the UP. Just making sure my curves connect nicely. Also down to the hip line. Just place my French curve. Yeah. Right there. Next, we're going to get the dot, or the waistline dot. So to do this, we're going to get the true waistline first. So here, we take the same measurement we took here. We're going to take it at the side of this one as well, which was 0.5. Then on the center front line, we're going to drop it with 1 cm. Remember, this increases based on the size you're drafting, so always take note. It's not the same for all. So 1 cm. Once that is done, we're going to just use a slight curve and connect together from the CF to the side seam. Next, I'm going to mark, the center line of the dot, which is quarter chest width, to align with this dot. So quarter chest in this case is 9.5. So from the CF, I'm going to mark 9.5. Also, just extend the line a little to get the straight center line. So here, 9.5. So I'm taking the same measurements I did. I'm taking 12 cm above and taking 15 cm below. So here, it's gonna, remember you're taking it on the true waistline, not this line. So let's call this true waistline. So I'll make a 12 cm from the waistline to the top. Make it 12 cm. 12 is right there, and then take it 15 cm down. 15. Connect. Now the front dot is usually 3 cm wide. That is also constant, never more than that. So for 3 cm, I'm going to take 1.5 cm both ways, which is here, 1.5. So I'll just go ahead and connect these points together, connect the dots. There you go. Once that is done, the final thing to do now is to get the actual shoulder shape out here. So what we'll do to get that is we're going to fold this dot out. Fold it nicely. Make sure it lays right on each other. And when you're folding it towards the neckline. So you're folding it, your fold goes to the neckline, not the other way around. Please take note. So you fold it towards the neckline, and then you connect the SB and the SB together. So this is like the final shoulder shape. So I'm just gonna connect right there. There we go. So next we're just going to trace on it. So just going to trace on the folded part. You could also just cut it through, but I don't want to do that, so I'll just trace on it. There. So once that is done, you just reconnect the traced line. So when you're cutting out your pattern, this is the line you cut through. So here are a couple of screenshots from the book. It has a table of proportions, the front part of the bodice, the back and all. So guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in my next video. Please subscribe if you haven't. Bye.